Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who loves analyzing the data behind sports business, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. This is episode 323. On this week's episode, I chat with CEO of the Arizona Coyotes, Xavier Gutierrez. Really enjoyed my chat with him. You are listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, I hope. It might be mine, Pocket Cast, but it is available on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all the places you can get a podcast. I really do appreciate the people who reach out, say they've listened to the podcast, and I do appreciate when they reach out to the guests involved, like Xavier in this episode. Don't forget, as always, you can contact me, Sean Callanan, on most social media platforms. Send me something on Twitter, send me a DM on Instagram. I'm trying to do a bit more on my Instagram these days. Or the old-fashioned way, email sean@sportsgeekhq.com. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's the latest episode in our CEO series. I've been trying to focus on securing more interviews with CEOs across the world of sport. So lucky enough to have a few in the can and then a few recently. If it's a CEO, maybe the CEO of your team or league deserves to be interviewed, please reach out, or anyone, in fact. It doesn't have to be a CEO. Anyone you think can be a podcast guest, simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/nominate. Nominate someone you think should get some due and get some recognition for what they do in the sports business industry. So appreciate your listenership. And now here is my chat with the CEO of the Arizona Coyotes, Xavier Gutierrez. Very happy to have Xavier Gutierrez, the president and CEO of the Arizona Coyotes. Xavier, welcome to the podcast.
Sean, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. One of the questions I always open up with people is I ask them how they got into the world of sports business. What was your journey to get into the world of sports business?
Oh, well, that's a long answer here, because I don't come from sports, and I certainly didn't come from hockey. I've had a 30-plus year career really in banking and investment and finance. The owner of the Coyotes, Alex Morello, and I have known each other for well over a decade, and we actually own a bank together in Southern California. When he bought the team in August of 2019, I was a partner at a large private equity firm, Clear Lake Capital, that some may now know as the owner of Chelsea FC. But I was there, and I was there for 3 years. Clear Lake was started by my roommate, actually, from Stanford, from graduate school. And Alex reached out to me, and he basically said, listen, I know this is not a conversation about hockey or sports or even about deal making in the business, but I want you to come and run this team, and I want you to come and help us build a new sports and entertainment district. And I think you're the right person. I think, and I really asked him why he thought that was the case, because that certainly wasn't in my mindset. He says, listen, I want to win, and I want to bring a Stanley Cup to the Valley here in Arizona. But I want us to stand for more than winning. And when you think about being a beloved organization, really, it's all about what you can do for others. And we talked a lot about leveraging this incredible power that sports has and the voice that it has to really make impact. And that resonated with me. You know, I went to a Jesuit high school, and the motto is being a man for others. And I hadn't really considered sports as that impact platform. But it absolutely has been. We also saw from a business opportunity a real turnaround potential here. You know, it's a great market in Arizona. It's the fifth largest city, fastest growing metro area in the United States. A lot of corporate relocation and expansion, a lot of population relocation and expansion. and an opportunity to really take an organization that has had, dysfunctionality and instability and really right it in a great market with a plan really based around a new sports and entertainment district as the key to the turnaround. And that's how I got here. I'm an immigrant to the United States. I was born in Mexico. I came here when I was 5 for kindergarten, and I've been truly blessed to live the American dream. And I think sports as a platform allows me to fulfill what I feel is my personal mission, which is to help others fulfill their American dream. And I've been very fortunate to be in this role and blessed to have that voice. And so that's really how I got here.
Because it's normally a lot of people are sports biz lifers. Like they go into sport because they love sport and work their way up. But you've definitely come from the outside in, even though you were at Clear Lake and looking at sports properties and assessing them as businesses and the valuations piece. Was there things that once you got in the chair and were inside the organizations that you started to learn how sports is a bit of a different beast when it comes to a business, because you've got that win-loss column, which a lot of businesses don't have, which makes it different. And then you've got super, super passionate fans that, over-index in their love for, we never say your brand, but your team and the culture around it. What were some of the differences you found once you're in the seat?
I think there's a number of differences, and even before Clear Lake, where I got to know Alex Morello is I ran the investment arm for the Morello Group, and we did take a look at a number of primarily NBA teams. So professional sports was something that Alex really had wanted to pursue for a long time. I think the surprising part that it ended up being hockey rather than professional basketball. When people ask me, okay, so what's the biggest difference between your career in private equity or in banking or finance? And I start with saying, everyone says all business is people related, but sports really is about people. Everything from the players to the coaches and trainers to the fans and to the fans in waiting, as I've dubbed them. We're trying to have people do something, whether it's perform their best on the ice, coach and train them the best, or welcome and super serve our fan base with our product on the ice and in-game entertainment, or online, or through our merchandise and our content. And so it's about people in a very core way. Second, you mentioned something. Passion and emotion are core to sports.
Yep. And
so that's something you just have to understand. And it's hard to do so unless you sit in the chair as a business, sort of imperative. Emotion and passion as a business pillar is not necessarily something that we've calculated in my previous sort of business endeavors. And then obviously, what makes sports so great in terms of impact is also one of its, uniqueness traits, and that is everything is public. Every day there's a section in the paper on your business, and when I walk around and we talk about things going on in our business, there's typically a reporter or camera or a phone capturing the comments and our strategies and sort of the way we work through it. And so that is certainly a unique factor. When I was announced as the president CEO of the Coyotes, which was in the middle of COVID, someone asked me that same question. And I said, well, listen, there typically isn't a press conference with a number of reporters asking me, how did that deal closing go? And what were the intricacies of it? And so for me, it is both the opportunity as well as the thing that you have to manage through of the high profile nature of sports. I had someone tell me sports as a business is simple in terms of its revenue streams or what have you, but it is extremely difficult to execute because of the people component, because of the passion component, and because it is so public.
Definitely. You talked about there coming in, in the middle of COVID and looking at, the stadium and some, pretty much what was on your remit. What was your early focus, and also how hard was it to connect with your people, both your people, your staff, and also your fans in what we were a really disconnected, Zoom-filled world?
Yeah, no, it was, an unprecedented challenge. right? I showed up, I changed careers, I got into a new industry, and I wasn't able to interact with my players for over 2 seasons. I obviously interacted with them over Zoom and what have you, and I saw them, but there were very strict protocols on either being on the hockey side or on the business side, and clearly my role should have been on the business side. And so just starting with that, I had a staff that we had half in and half not in.
Yep.
We had a stadium that had, I joined in the league shut down. The league had been shut down. And then when it returned, it was in a bubble, right, in Edmonton and in Toronto. And so these were just significant challenges. But what I often say is that the pandemic showed the primacy of sports, right? The impact it has on communities, the impact it has on culture, and the impact it has on commerce. And so to me, that was the exciting part, that it really shown how as a community, sports convenes you and creates this sense of hope and of joy and of inspiration. As far as a commerce, you saw all these businesses that truly relied on having sports, whether it's our media partners, our employees in the arenas, our employees in our practice facilities, and then obviously all the vendors in our supply chain for our merchandise or for our food and beverage and our concessions. And then finally, really sports was that integral part of culture that I think people missed and really, helped get us out of the pandemic in a way in which, again, we were able to have joy and happiness. And so it became more exciting, but it really was a challenge. And I think we tried to rely on this North Star that we had of again, the impact that sports can have. And, the other challenge is this was a turnaround. So not only were we in a pandemic, we were trying to do a turnaround and trying to create a new narrative and a new a culture of the organization. And I spent a lot of time just sharing our vision and really honestly saying we are not this previous regime or the regimes that were here before, the ownership groups. This is what we're intending to do. This is our commitment. These are the actions we're taking. And so not only did we have to manage through a global pandemic, but we had to try to undo a lot of the narrative and a lot of the actions from previous sort of ownership groups that simply weren't us.
And I guess from your point of view, you're leading both internally, getting that message through to your team. But like you said before, there's the media relations piece, there's the fan piece, there's engaging the community. You've spoken about commerce, culture, and community. How much is that like the key pillars to what you're trying to do in building a new stadium in Tempe?
Yeah, well, the key pillars of the Tempe project really are around our business plan, which are actually impact, inclusion, and innovation, right? Impact, obviously, leveraging the power of sports to make a difference in people's lives. Inclusion is not only putting diverse voices at the seat of decision making, because it's a reflection of the community in which we are in, and it's a reflection of the growth cohorts that we're trying to capture and engage in terms of being young and female and diverse and tech savvy, purpose driven. But it's truly welcoming every part of the community to be a part of the Coyotes. I talk again about fans and super serving the fans that we have that are, this is a hockey town, and people find that odd when I say that, but it truly is. We've been here for 27 years. We have a robust, one of the best youth hockey programs in the United States. And you have all these Canadian snowbirds that come here, as well as such a massive community of retired NHL players that make this their home. But, so we super serve this fan base, but we really have to focus as well on these fans in waiting and going to them where they're at, using our content, using our merchandise, using our fan experience, or using our community leadership to welcome them and to say, you are a part of the Coyotes, and meeting them where they're at. And then finally being innovative. So, one of the things that we have been very proud of this season is this collaboration that Alex Morello Jr., the son of Alex Morello, who is our chief brand officer, he did a collaboration on merchandise with a global fashion icon in Luigi Villaseñor. And not only did we do our third jersey, which has been overwhelmingly well received, but an entire street line and streetwear rather, that has welcomed fans in waiting. Those have never been associated or even thought about the Coyotes or thought about hockey, but they're wearing the hoodies, they're wearing the T-shirts, they're wearing the hats and the shorts, and they feel a part of the brand of the Coyotes. They feel part of our organization and of our efforts. And so to us, that's thinking innovatively. That's thinking, like we're going to get more hockey fans by going out and doing a fashion collaboration, for a streetwear line.
Yep.
That to us is exactly what we should be doing and creating something that I think sports does very well, which is cultural relevancy, being a part of the community and its culture. And for us, that's more than just being a hockey team.
Terrific. I mean, there's a lot of sports are looking for new avenues to bring that fan in, and fashion is a terrific one. The Coyotes have a long history of terrific jerseys, terrific color palettes, so many things to work with. So having someone, become a fan because they've bought a T-shirt or a specific line is how a lot of sports now are attracting. And I love your phrase, fans in waiting. They don't know they're fans yet, but you do. And then some of the I guess, political maneuvering and the negotiations with governments and communities. I mean, you're obviously leaning on your real estate background and your investment experience back there, but what are some of the challenges of, getting all of those things ticked off and getting the approvals that you need to make that stadium? But it's not more than just a stadium now. It's a precinct that Tempe can embrace. What are some of the, I guess, challenges and opportunities going through that process?
Yes, well, right now we're in the middle of a political campaign to get approval for what would be the first privately funded sports and entertainment district in the history of Arizona. And as you mentioned, it's not an arena project. It's a best-in-class urban redevelopment project. We're going to actually take a toxic landfill and turn it into this landmark. And it is anchored by a world-class sports and entertainment arena. But it's more than that. It's 46 acres along Tempe Town Lake in the city of Tempe, which is right next to the city of Phoenix. We're less than 3 miles from the Sky Harbor International Airport, which brings in 50 million travelers a year. And right next to Arizona State University, the largest public university in the country. And it is a transformative project. It's going to have 2 hotels, 350,000 square feet of shops and restaurants. The Rodeo Drive of Arizona, as we've dubbed it. It's going to have 2,000 units of housing. It's going to have our arena, our practice facility, which will be open to the public when not in use. And it'll have a 4,000 person theater in addition to 2 medical office campus towers. It's an incredible project, and we're paying for it. And we're trying to get the voters of Tempe to approve it. We took it to the voters. We thought it was too big of a project for them not to have a say in it. But it comes down to this. It's an opportunity to clean up a landfill that's been there for 70 years and actually caught on fire last summer. It's an opportunity for economic real resources coming to the city. It's going to create 7,000 jobs. It's going to create almost $215 million over 30 years, so $7 million a year in new revenue for the city. We're actually buying the land, paying for all of the development. And so what we've really been leaning on, what I've been leaning on, as you mentioned, I used to run a real estate private equity firm. I clearly have been in the investment world. But really, we're leaning on this true north of our impact as being a community leader, of saying this is not just about a hockey team coming and staying in Tempe, because we're already playing in Tempe at Mullet Arena, which I'm sure we'll get into. It is about us as an organization trying to bring impact to this community with this transformative project and putting our money where our mouth is to make it happen, not putting the taxpayers at risk, not asking them to pay for it, which, by the way, has never happened in the history of Arizona. There is no privately funded sports facility or entertainment facility in the history of Arizona. Everything's always been paid for by the taxpayers or guaranteed by the taxpayers. And that's not at all what the deal is here. You know, as we say, it's the right project. It's the right deal, and we're the right team to execute it on. And as we say, this is not us moving to Tempe. We are already in Tempe. We are already a community leader. We are already there, having made a $30 million investment. I really tip my hat to Alex Morello for saying, I'm willing to put up $30 million for a temporary solution while I try to spend $2 billion for a permanent solution and really transform the valley. When you think about the center of the valley being Tempe with this T, as we talk about, from North Scottsdale down to Gilbert, Chandler, and into Central Phoenix, for all of your listeners and followers that don't know Arizona, that's about 75% plus of the population of Arizona. And again, the fifth largest metro area in the country. And Tempe sits right in the middle of that. It is where all the corporate relocation is going. It is where all this innovative economy, companies and startups are being created. And we're excited about that. We think it's absolutely going to be transformative. We do have a campaign. We have a vote on May 16th. But when people learn about, again, the right project, the right deal, and the right team to execute on it, we've gotten overwhelming support. So we feel, quietly confident. We work every day. My voice is hoarse because I think I do four to six speaking events a day, and I will until the vote. But we feel so passionate about it. And again, it's anchored in our vision to leverage the power of sports to make an impact. And this is an opportunity to physically impact this community.
I did want to talk to you about Mullet Arena because it is in Tempe. It is at Arizona State University. It's somewhere, it is a temporary solution, but it sort of reminds me of a quote of a performer guest, Scott O'Neill, "Be where your feet are." You're very much in the community now and starting to do the executing. Even though you're at Mullet Arena, it's a smaller venue, there's less tickets. What are some of both the challenges of moving to a smaller venue, but also some of the opportunities of now being able to engage the Tempe community?
Yeah. Well, we were in a prior location and it was a city-owned facility, and the city decided that they did not want to renew our lease after we told them we would not sign a 20-year lease extension. We knew that Tempe was where we wanted to go. We were quite surprised they were unwilling to bridge our time there. And so we began looking for new solutions. Fortunately, there was a hockey arena that was already slated to be built, brand new, on the campus at Arizona State University. So I approached the folks at ASU, their visionary president, Dr. Michael Crow, and their CFO, Morgan Olson, their athletic director, Ray Anderson, and their leadership, and said, listen, we'd like to be your tenant while we wait to build our permanent solution. And we'd like to be in Tempe because this is the community we want to be in permanently. And they were very, open and generous with opening up that opportunity. But it came certainly at a significant investment. As I mentioned, Alex Morello made the commitment to put over $30 million, not only building a new annex that hosts our locker room and our medical offices and offices for day of game, but upgrading Mullet Arena. It wasn't up to NHL quality in terms of broadcast quality, the technology that needed to go in for real-time replay and stats and a lot of the game day experience. And then we had to upgrade. We had to buy a players' training facility next to our practice facility. We had to upgrade our practice facility locker rooms. We had to move our hockey operations. We had to move our business operations. By the way, we had to do all that in 7 months.
Yep.
So we had to move all of that and do all that in a very short order. But I told people very early on, yes, we're not going to shy away from one. It's a temporary solution, and it is smaller. It's only about 5,000 people, so the smallest in the NHL. But we knew it was going to be an incredible fan experience, and it has been. It is one of the best environments, if not the best fan experiences in the NHL, because every seat is a premium seat. You're within 15 rows of the ice. You have energy. It's the loudest arena in the NHL. It's electric. And some of the things that we didn't expect is the ice is the best ice in the NHL. And that's coming from the players, both our players and the visiting players. They have remarked about how consistent the ice stays throughout the game, how fast it is, how fast the boards are. And as we've said, we knew it was going to be a great experience. But we've told people it's a temporary solution, and we were going to make it a phenomenal fan experience, and we have, and it's been incredibly well received. We're glad to hear that the players like playing there, that they like it. Truth be told, borne out in our record at home. We are very much with a winning home record, and our players love playing there, and the visiting players love being there. And so it's been a great temporary solution, and it's in the place that we want to be permanently. The ease, the centrality, rather, of the location in the Valley makes it so comfortable for the players, the coaches, the trainers to come in and out of there, and to also for our fans and our fans in waiting, who many of whom have never been exposed to hockey. And we're right next to ASU. We have 2 student sections that are packed, typically with students that have never been to a hockey game. And so we're using that as well as an opportunity to welcome them into the Coyotes pack.
Terrific. I mean, we've worked with teams previously that have been in a smaller venue and then looking to move to a larger venue. And you've got to get this, you've got a roadmap there, but you've got to get that balance right of, we really love you to come to a game, but we've only got limited inventory from a ticketing point of view. So you've got to do different things, whether they be watch parties or different engagements to like engage those fans that you've got now, but also those fans in waiting. Is that a juggling act for your ticketing and membership and fan engagement staff to keep building, to say, look, we're going to eventually move to this stadium. It's going to have more inventory, sort of keeping that pipeline and keeping those fans in waiting, ready and waiting?
Yeah, no, we absolutely have had a plan that says we want to welcome you to a game. We want you to be a part of this, but we have to go out to where you're at. So we have a full slate of watch parties, of collaborations with some of the entertainment venues that are here, with the restaurants that are here. We just did a pop-up. We had over 1,000 people for the launch of our streetwear collection as part of First Fridays in Arizona, in downtown Phoenix, rather. And so it's activation beyond the facility that is a key component of it. And, it's definitely worked out. We have we're beginning our season renewal phase. We have higher percentage of renewals than we ever had in our previous location. People are shocked when we tell them that we will make more in ticket revenue this year than we did in our previous location. And again, because they're all premium seating. And so for us, the challenge has been to expand it beyond the facility, to create activations, to create engagement, and to create revenue generating opportunities beyond just day of game and being in the facility.
Terrific. I want to go back to the ice. You said earlier that, that's what makes sport different, the high performance side and the athlete and coaching side. And again, you've put your hand up. Your strength is in making the deals and private equity and investment. But there is also the high performance side of recruiting players, recruiting coaches, going through draft, going through trades. We're recording this. You just acquired a defenseman from the Red Wings only a couple of hours ago for future considerations, as they say. What's the process for you to be involved, or how involved are you on the operations side of the hockey business?
Well, the hockey business has the hockey and then the business. I certainly am involved on the business side. There's a lot of contracts. There's a lot of expenditures. There's a lot of financial management on that side. But I am not a hockey subject matter expert, as I say. Yep. We have a very, very experienced, successful general manager in Bill Armstrong, who had helped build the St. Louis Blues into a Stanley Cup winner. And, he came in and he took some time to assess the right path to create a sustainable winner, not just peaks and valleys, but a sustainable winner. And he came to myself and Alex Morello, the owner, and his son Alex Morello Jr., and he came up with a plan to really build through the draft. And we have been very focused on that. We have put a significant amount of effort in our scouting department. I believe we have one of the largest scouting departments in the NHL. We actually have 4 individuals on our scouting department that have picked the number 1 overall pick in the NHL, that have that experience of doing so. And so it's acquire the draft assets, scout and select quality players. And then the other investment has been in the player development, everything from the nutritionist to sleep science, which I didn't even know was a science until I got there, to our training facilities and in using performance technology to really guide that effort. So, we have put a significant investment in building the foundation in that manner. And truth be told, we've had some significant success with our draft picks the last several years. Dylan Guenther was the 9th overall pick in our first draft there, and he has been spectacular. We have Logan Cooley, who was the 3rd overall pick, and who will more than likely be joining us at the end of this season. He was the leading scorer for USA's, at the World Juniors. Dylan Guenther won the World Juniors in overtime with the winning goal. So, this is what you're getting. And then we have arguably the Rookie of the Year, Matthias Maccelli, was a 4th-round pick in that Dylan Guenther draft. We have J.J. Moser, Karel Vejmelka, the makings of this incredible core. And then we have these young, sort of the young veterans, as we call them, led by Clayton Keller, our 3-time All-Star, who's still only 24 years old, one of the more skilled players in the NHL. Lawson Krause, who we just signed for 4 years earlier before this season. But to give you a sense, we have 47 draft picks in the next 4 years. That would be a record. By the way, there's only 50 players on a roster. Yep. When you talk about us in our minor leagues. And so we obviously more than likely will not draft all 47 and utilize them for draft picks. But those are the draft assets that you get in order to allow yourself to pick or to move up in the draft. We did that last year with Connor Geekie, where we moved up from, I believe it was about 23, 22 into the 11th spot. And so we are building a winner. We are building a sustainable winner. And the reality is we've got a culture of competition and winning that's being created by our coach, Andre Tourigny, as evidenced by the fact that we have all these young players that we're playing and all these young veterans that we're putting out there, and we're winning. And we're actually beating people like we've beaten the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Colorado Avalanche, the defending Stanley Cup. We beat the Boston Bruins, who are on a historic run this year. And they came to the Mullet, and we beat them. And so this is absolutely a culture of winning, a culture of competition, and we're building a foundation that people need to be very, very aware that's the effort that we're putting into this.
Terrific. One last one. Your avenue into the sports business was very different to a lot of people, but you understand the competitive nature of getting into the world of sports business, how many graduates are coming out, how many people see it as an attractive industry. Have you got advice for people looking to break into the sports business, whether it is on the business side or in the scouting and the hockey side? Is there advice that you've got for potential graduates wanting to get into sports?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think the first thing is it's a people business. And so you really, really have to put as part of your job description, building relationships, networking, getting in front of people, asking them how they got to where they were. I say this all the time. Business is all about people, but sports business, it really is about people. You never know when you will be in the room where an opportunity can open up unless you've created those relationships. And so I tell young people, put as much effort into building your network and building your relationships as you do in terms of building your communication skills or your subject matter expertise. So that's number one. I think number two is be a problem solver, not a problem identifier. When you get yourself into these roles, try to find solutions, try to come up with recommendations. That, by the way, is something that I tell people across business industries. It's really easy to identify what's gone wrong or what the challenges are. It's much harder to say, I believe this is a pathway forward. You may end up having to iterate. You may end up having to scrap completely what you've put forth, but at least you're putting forth solutions. And I think finally, I do tell people is really focus on your passion for what it is that you want to get out. If you mismatch your skills with your passion, it just never works out. You'll be unhappy. You won't ever truly be fully fulfilled and developed as a professional. The reality is that there are things that we all do well, and there's things that other people do much better than we do, and we have to find our passions and our positions in terms of where that's at. But overall, I also tell people to embrace the power of their voice and the impact that they can make. I share with people constantly my time and my counsel and just the things that I've witnessed and the advice that I can offer. The power of our voices. You don't have to sit in the role of a CEO in order to make an impact on someone's life. And so I share with people, embrace the impact that you can make in not only in the world around you, but certainly in individuals' lives and careers.
Definitely. And also bring that experience you've got from wherever you may have got it. Like you're a prime example of not being in sports. There's a lot of you're being insular of, you've got to know the sport to be in the sport. And that's getting debunked on a daily basis by a lot of people. Of like, here I am, a former computer programmer helping sports teams around digital. Like it shouldn't happen, but you can bring those skills across into the sport because it is a business, and that's a bit that like I'm passionate about, and I can see your passion for what you're doing in Tempe. Javier, I really appreciate you coming on. I just want to finish off with the closing five. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
No, my first sports event was in Mexico. I went to see the Chivas de Guadalajara, so I don't remember. But the one sports event that I talk about is my very first baseball game. I was 8 years old. I'm in Dodger Stadium.
Yep.
I'm an immigrant to this country. I don't speak English, and I'm looking at a left-hander on the mound from Mexico, doesn't speak English, just having ultimate success. And that was Fernando Valenzuela. That passion and that belief that I could succeed in the United States just like he did, that really, really was inspiring to me. And I will never forget that. That is the type of emotion, inspiration, and passion that sports can give you. And I will never forget that feeling of looking down and saying, I can do that. I obviously couldn't throw a screwball like he could, or strike any major league batters out, but I could be successful and I could be a part of this country's success. And to me, that is the sports moment that I constantly refer myself back to.
Terrific. You would have been to a lot of sports events in your time. Do you have a favorite food memory, or is there a go-to food at a Coyotes game? If someone's going to a Coyotes game, is there a dish that they should be trying that is unique to your games?
Well, there's nothing that's unique to our games right now because again, we're a tenant in Mullet. But when we go into the new place, we are certainly going to do some specialties, some Coyote specialties that will definitely be there. For me, though, the pizza that they have there at Mullet Arena is spectacular. You wouldn't think that would be the case, but it is phenomenal. And I invite folks to come out to Mullet and try the pizza.
Terrific. What's the first app you open in the morning?
The first app that I open in the morning is the LA Times. I read 5 newspapers in the morning: the LA Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and the Arizona Republic.
Terrific. Is there someone that the podcast listeners should follow? Maybe it's a colleague or someone that you look up to, or an author that you think they should be following or checking out?
Well, I direct people actually to a handful of sort of these sports trades that I think are just incredible. Obviously, the Sports Business Journal, Sportico, and front office sports. I think those three, I check those out religiously, and I just think that they do such a good job of capturing the entire ecosystem of sports. So not just the box score or the team, but really behind the scenes, the owners, the leagues, the collaborations, the great deal making that's going on, and also sports being right at that center, the confluence of sports to media, to technology, to consumer, sort of trends. I think it's really, really very important for folks who have that passion of the sports business to be aware of the trends that are being set out there.
Definitely. I mean, the merging of sports and tech and media, I mean, it's becoming its own soap opera these days. Myself, I follow Ben Thompson of Stratechery, looking at all the different media deals and how they're piecing together and, the impact it's going to be for different leagues. Lastly, what social media platform is your MVP? And you can answer that as yourself, but then also potentially what platform's working the best for the Coyotes.
So I actually didn't have any social media before I joined here, except for one that is still my go-to, and it shouldn't be a surprise as a business person. That's LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. To me, I think LinkedIn it has become more and more central to the sports business because it's a business just like every other business out there. But obviously now the distribution along TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, obviously Twitter, Facebook as well. Those are all just incredibly powerful distribution platforms. But for me, I still go back to my tried and true of LinkedIn. It's been great to see it evolve as an even bigger voice in the sort of the landscape of business across industries, and now very much including the sports business. So for me, that's been my go-to.
Well, Javier, I really do appreciate you coming on the podcast. I hope you get some more lemon tea and look after that voice of yours. You've probably got more interviews to go. Where is LinkedIn the best place for people to reach out, say that they've listened to the podcast?
Absolutely. For me, I always I direct people to my LinkedIn because that's the one that I typically am on the most. And so if they ever want to reach out, if they ever want to connect, or if I can ever be of help to you or to your listeners and your followers, I'm always here to be helpful.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and I hope to be in your part of the world soon, and hopefully maybe checking out a new stadium and a new precinct someday down the line.
Absolutely, Sean. You're always welcome. You're a friend of the Coyotes. Anytime you want to be, you're here as my guest. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this, and hopefully this was interesting to your listeners. And I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Thanks, mate.
Why not book a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan? Go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to my guest, Xavier Gutierrez. You can follow him and send him a tweet, Mr. Xavier AG, on Twitter. I'll be linking to him via the show notes via my handle at Sean Callanan or at SportsGeek. Or please, as he said, connect with him on LinkedIn. The links will be in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/323, which is the episode 323. Please, and also if you know someone in Tempe, Arizona, send them to Tempe Wins. Go check out everything around the stadium proposal, the stadium precinct that we discussed. Really hope to see that proposal get up. I think it'll be an amazing venue, and I think some of the stuff that they're going to do in activating around Tempe, like they're already doing now in the Mullet Arena, I really think it's going to be an amazing precinct and terrific. And hopefully we'll be able to get to a Coyotes game sometime in the near future. Before I wrap up, what I like to do after interviews is sort of do, I guess, a topic or tackle something. And in this case, I want to tackle big idea thinking and how to think outside the budget. What we do find in sports is they are sometimes constrained by budget, whether that be lack of resources, lack of people, in some cases, we're being short-staffed or lack of budget to be able to bring in a freelancer or bring in extra resources to film something or record something or do something a little bit bigger. So automatically the ideas start from a restricted space. And I was lucky enough to be in a workshop at C2 Montreal a couple of years ago, which was being run by the Cirque du Soleil producers and the people that produce the new shows. And so one of the things that they try to do is to not put restrictions on their creative people, because as soon as you start putting restrictions on your creative people, it obviously restricts creativity. And so they discussed how they came up with the O2 show. And if you're not familiar, the O2 show is a water spectacular inside a Las Vegas, theater. And so if the brief had been come up with a water-based show inside a theater, it never would have come up because they would have just seen all the barriers. Whereas what they did was they were ideating different ideas and different shows. And then they look, what would it be like if we put gymnastics and circus performing into a water show? They thought that would be really cool. And then they put their creativity to making it work. But then the other piece was the idea was so good. They actually were able to secure some of the extra funding around that as a concept. And so that was my takeaway from doing that workshop. Don't restrict your team coming up with big ideas. In fact, encourage them to come up with big ideas. Encourage them to come up with ideas they can't service, scale for, have the people for, have the resources for, because then they get their best ideas. And then it also starts forcing your team and then also your commercial folk to start figuring out how you can do that killer idea. Like, you want the killer idea, you want the killer concept. And so once you have that, and you've got the kernel of the idea, and that it makes sense and it hits the mark, then you can start thinking creatively around the commercial property of it. Which partner will be best suited to this? How can we make it happen? Where can we start getting creative in our accounting, and what budgets can be used and leveraged? And so it starts expanding the minds and expanding the scope of what your digital creative teams can do, but then also that your commercial and sponsorship teams can do, and actually gets them working together far better. If your digital and creative content team can come to the commercial team saying, hey, we've got this killer idea, we'd like to do this, but it requires this special camera, or we need to hire someone, or it's going to require this influencer, or whatever it is, you can then pitch it to them, who then can pitch it to sponsors. It's very much a big part of digital to dollars in understanding what you can do, but then also how to craft that pitch back to a partner. And so, yeah, that's my main point of this is don't lock up your creativity inside a budget. Allow it to run free. Doesn't mean every great idea is going to come off, because we can't just make money. It doesn't fall from the sky. But getting your team starting to work and thinking about your content and what they're doing commercially can actually help some of that money come in the door and get some of these big ideas approved. So, big idea thinking, encourage it. You want your people to doing the most creative work. Sometimes that's going to cost money. But the thing is, if you get great ideas, somehow great ideas attract both the money and the solutions. And so you can start apply some of that creativity, like I said, to what you're trying to do to actually make the idea happen. So if you've got a team that's looking to build the next big thing, well, let's get the ball rolling. I'd love to be in one of those workshops with your team to help them come up with that big idea and also come up with the commercial assets to help that big idea happen. So you can do that with the Pick My Brain session. We can help scope out the budget of that next big project after that. But sometimes it's just getting the creative neurons firing to get the idea up and running. So you can book in for Pick My Brain by just going to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Appreciate you listening. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Don't miss out on the latest news and updates from the sports industry. Sign up for the Sports Geek News email newsletter today and stay informed on the latest trends, insights, and analysis from the world of sports. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. For more resources, go to sportsgeekhq.com.